feel like almost every talk we give here needs this reminder that the Buddha made it his mission to end suffering. That it's famously said that he says, I only teach one thing, suffering and the end of suffering. And Ajahn Chah, the Venerable Ajahn Chah, once said that if we see suffering, then we don't have suffering. So it's in order to end suffering, we need to know its causes and uproot these causes. So that's what tonight's talk is going to cover, the cause of suffering. So last week, I talked about this concept called dukkha. And dukkha is the acknowledgement that we all experience pain, loss, disappointment, and unsatisfactoriness in life. Like I said, that this is the Buddha's first teaching, and he was like kind of a bad news first kind of guy. So this is where we start with. And in the Buddha's very first discourse, the very first lesson he gave after his awakening, it's called the Turning the Wheel of the Dhamma, he introduces this concept of dukkha. He says, this is dukkha, birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha, encountering what is not dear is dukkha, separation from what is dear is dukkha, not getting one wants is dukkha. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know I have. That birth, aging, sickness, death, separation from loved ones, being around people I don't like all that much. This is kind of the experience of life. So this is acknowledging that we will all go through this and all definitely go through different myriads of manifestations of this concept of dukkha. And so with this acknowledgement that life has painful experiences, it isn't the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is when we hate dukkha, we hate pain. When we cling and crave pleasure as a way to avoid pain, then we're suffering. And so in this discourse, he goes through dukkha, but then he gives us like an action plan. And that action plan is to embrace dukkha. And embrace dukkha is not necessarily like an embrace like, oh, I believe in this, like an intellectual embrace, and not necessarily like an embrace like grabbing on to painful experiences. It's a compassionate response to what is painful. It's a way to develop a loving, nurturing heart to this inevitable sorrows and difficulties in life. And when we have a heart that's so loving, when these painful experiences arise, we're no longer suffering. It's this quality of, I can love you too, pain. I don't have to suffer over this. And so that's really what we covered last week. And so this week I want to go into what the cause of suffering is. I want to be clear on directly what the Buddha taught about the cause of suffering and how we can make way out of suffering. And so in this discourse, and I want to keep on referencing this discourse, the first discourse the Buddha gave, the Turning the Wheel of the Dhamma, he also describes what we call the cause of suffering, which is craving. And in the Pali Sanskrit, it's Taṇhā, T-A-N-H-A, Taṇhā. And this is what he directly said in this discourse. It is craving which is repetitive, wallowing in attachment and greed, obsessively indulging in this and that, craving for stimulation, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. And so the cause of suffering is this repetitive, reactive greed and attachment. And so all things in life are impermanent. Everything changes. Everything we love goes away. And what happens is we grab onto experiences that are impermanent. We try to find lasting happiness in things that don't last. And when we do so, we are left in this cycle of addiction to grabbing onto pleasure, and it leaves us in this stress-filled, unresting state of constantly grabbing towards pleasure because it's inevitably impermanent. And so this word Taṇhā, it's been translated in a few different ways. So I want to go through some of the ways it's been translated, this word Taṇhā, and some of the ways are helpful and some of the ones I really don't find helpful. So the first one I want to look at is a very popular way that people describe this word, Taṇhā, as desire. You may hear this, desire is the cause of suffering. And that's not true in my experience at all, right? That desire is the cause of suffering. So my hopes, my dreams, my needs in life, that's why I'm suffering? That's totally not true in my life. And even the Buddha had desires. He desired awakening. He desired to be compassionate. And so I really don't think that this kind of depressing outlook on the Dharma is helpful, that desire is the cause of suffering. So more often in this circle, Wild Heart, we translate Taṇhā as craving. And that seems to make sense to me, right? There's this craving quality of like my sense of well-being is reliant on something being here that's not here, and it's that stress-filled grasping that leaves us in that bubbling up of reactivity, of that unresting, anxious state. But this word Taṇhā literally translates to thirst. Thirst. I'm an alcoholic. Like, I totally get how thirst leads to suffering, how much pain I've caused myself and others because of my thirsts, right? But not all of my thirsts have created a great deal of suffering. So I'm just playing with broad strokes and see what's true in your life around what causes suffering. And the word I want to land on tonight is addiction. So addiction causes suffering from my experience. And not to say that only addicts have suffering. So if you are in this room and you don't identify as an addict, the Buddha's teaching says otherwise. The Buddha's teaching says all humans are addicts. The human experience is quite addictive, that every single person is recovering from something and addicted to something as they go through their process of recovery. So everybody's an addict in this context. So if I use language that the mind starts excluding you, no, you're a human. Come on in, you're an addict. So there's three ways. I want to get a little technical about this, and then we'll get practical at the end. There's three ways that Taṇhā, this addiction, these ways we can be addicted to cause suffering, show up in the teachings. And the first one is looking at sense craving for sense pleasure. And we receive the world through the eyes, through the ears, through the nose, through the tongue, and through the body. This is how reality comes alive. All experience happens in this body, right? And it almost sounds kind of clunky to be like, we're addicted to sense pleasure. But let me put this in a practical standpoint. Let's look at sight. What are some of the sights we can be addicted to? We can be addicted to seeing pornography, TV, the internet. And we can be addicted to seeing things on our devices. And there's one more click. One more click. And it's like dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit, that the promise of lasting happiness will be just in the next click, right? And then that's that repetitive cycle that we're lost in our devices, right? Sounds. We can be addicted to sounds. Things like getting praise, hearing praiseworthy sounds, listening to the news, listening to things that keep us narrow in our fixed views can be very addictive. I get addicted to the news. I think that's me just telling on myself that I listen to a lot of self-confirming news. Nose is another one. Smells. I don't know what smells you can be addicted to, but I know there's that saying, I don't like cocaine, I just like the way it smells. So we'll just put it in that category, right? The tongue, right? Addicted to the tastes, the food, the drinks. And then ultimately this fifth sense that we look at, feeling. We're addicted to feeling a certain way. We're addicted to feeling a pleasant feeling. Like any object I find myself addicted to, drugs and alcohol, give me that warmth in my body, right? The hope of the scrolling online gives me that hopefulness feeling, that energized feeling that I'm looking for. So we're addicted really to feeling a different way than we actually feel. So not only in this sense pleasure, but we can also be addicted to our thoughts. And I think most of us are recovering from addiction to crappy thoughts. So I think it's helpful that the Buddha outlined that we can be addicted to thoughts. And he went into two particular ways. He went into bhava tanha and vibhava tanha. Bhava tanha is addicted to becoming, the addicting to existing in a certain way. So this means like addiction to, I'll be happy when I get rich. I'll be happy when I get famous. I'll be happy when I'm superior, when I claim a certain social status. I'll be happy when I'm skinnier. I'll be happy when my hair looks this way. I get rid of these wrinkles, whatever it is. That becoming. I can't be happy right now. I withhold my happiness till I become. And so that thought pattern is very unresting. So we can be addicted to that thought pattern. But me personally, I have a tendency, or have had a tendency quite often in my life, for vibhava tanha. And I really appreciate that this is outlined. The craving for not becoming, the craving for non-existence. So this is the I don't want us. And somebody that has previously experienced depression and suicidal ideation, this is like totally real in my life. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to live is the ultimate. And that's been in there too. And that's an addictive thought pattern. You know, it's quite resistant, but it is quite addictive to think that way. And it totally has been true in my experience. And so looking at all the ways that addiction can show up in your life, and I kind of appreciate that the Buddha painted these in broad strokes, that we're not only addicted to substances and behaviors, but we're also addicted to thoughts. And so let me look into a modern view of addiction. So it's Dr. Gabor Mate. Rock star in modern views of addiction. He's very pivotal into welcoming in trauma as a response to addiction. And one of the ways he describes addiction is, he says, addiction is any behavior that a person craves or finds temporary relief in, but then experiences negative consequences and doesn't give up. So it's like when we experience these negative, unwanted consequences from our behavior, but then we keep on going. We keep on doing it. We're stuck in that cycle. And there's a helpful reflection that the Buddha gave to welcome us to look at these so-called negative consequences. And so when we look at what behaviors are the cause of our suffering, he asks us to reflect. He said, when you're contemplating this, look at, does this behavior, what did he say? Does it lead to my own affliction? Does it lead to others' affliction? Or both? Does this lead to my own harm? Does it lead to others' harm? Or both? And so we look at and take personal accountability for the ways our behaviors create harm. And like really any modern recovery program, you end up doing this. You take an inventory process of all the ways your addiction created harm. And so taking this time to, be real with yourself. Do my thought patterns create harm? Do my behaviors, does my drinking alcohol, does that create harm in my body? Am I hurting my body? Do I say things when I drink too much that hurt my family? When I'm on social media, porn, my devices, the internet, does that hurt me in any way? Am I ignoring my family and friends by being stuck in my internet addiction, right? And the answer could be no. And I think that's really helpful. Be like, yeah, that behavior really isn't causing any harm. So go for it. Do it. Have fun. Enjoy life. Enjoy the pleasures of life. It doesn't mean, if it's not creating suffering, great. And I always appreciate that Buddhism doesn't have a concept of sin. Because when I first heard that, like, I remember reading it in a book, and I was like, that is awesome. Buddhism has no sin. I can do whatever the fuck I want. But we do have that concept of karma, that every action has a consequence. So look at your actions, because every single one of them has an outcome. And so when we look at that, we can be real. Is the action I'm committing to right now creating an outcome that I want? Because certain actions lead to suffering, and this is the cause of suffering. Not only, like, I talk about actions. When we talk about actions, it's this word karma. Karma is a Sanskrit word that literally translates to action. And we develop karma in 3 ways. Through our physical actions, through our speaking, and through our minds. And I tend to focus more on the mind, that our thoughts are actions. So keep an eye on that. Those thought processes. So, and in this discourse, turning the wheel of the Dhamma, the first discourse that the Buddha gave that I keep on pointing back to, when I talked about dukkha, right, that he had this first acknowledgement that life has birth, aging, sickness, death, and all these painful experiences in life. He gave a call to action, which was to embrace dukkha with compassion. And then he moved on to say the cause of suffering is this reactive, repetitive craving. Craving for greed and attachment, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. And so the call to action around this, around Taṇhā, around craving, around the cause of suffering, is to let go. Let go of your craving, or let go of your attachment. Let go of the thought processes of I'll be happy when. Let go of the thought processes that are dismissive, avoidant, hateful, and push out. Let go of these things. And easier said than done. You know, sometimes I open the old school teachings and I look and it says, you know, well, just do this. Just let go, right? The end. And it's like easier said than done. So to a certain degree, we have to have a little bit of faith that this practice is a practice of subtraction, that we renounce, we remove, we get rid of, subtract. So we renounce greed in all of its forms. We renounce hatred in all of its forms. We renounce and get rid of ignorance in all of its form. And this will be the end of suffering, the letting go of what creates suffering. So, looking back to Ajahn Chah, what he said about this, he says, do everything with a mind that lets go. If you let go a little, you will have little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, complete peace. And so there is kind of this hopeful message. If you let go, you will discover peace. So it's like a positive negative. The Buddhist practice is a negation, but you also have to be positive to negate. You have to have the positive attitude to negate what causes suffering. And so it's like this paradox. I believe, like having faith that I can remove the causes of suffering and uproot the causes of suffering. I believe I can do this. And the killer is doubt. You know, sometimes we talk about Mara, the evil one, right? And Mara's main divisiveness, his main killer was this killer of doubt. As soon as we think, I can't do this, that's when we're in trouble. Get into the positive attitude that you can do this. You can remove what causes suffering. And so this paradoxical look at the positivity to negate. It's even this word let go. Let go. It's kind of like 2 different words. Let has this quality of surrender, right? And go has this release. Let go. So it's like this like allowance of release. Allow and release. And so that's like where we start getting to the practicality of this practice. The idea of letting go, I'm like, yeah, right. But let this moment be as it is. And release. It'll go. So when I point back to like addiction stuff, like I remember when I first quit drinking, there had to be a lot of letting. Like, when I first quit drinking, I remember like the waves of craving and anxiety that were running through my body. And the closest thing I remember this feeling like was a roller coaster. Like that feeling of leaning into a big drop on a roller coaster. My stomach's dropping, my body's getting tense, and it's just a wave of rushing. And so the more I fought that rushing, and I craved to not feel that rushing going through my body, I would be reaching for a drink. So if I let the anxiety run through my body, let the craving run through my body, what happens? It goes. It goes all on its own. And it will come back, let go, over and over and over again. And so this is the idea that we will have those experiences of dukkha run through us. Like I said, anxiety was running through me. And when we don't embrace dukkha, don't embrace pain, we get a crappy substitute. That addiction is just a crappy substitute for love. And so that's where we can find ways to replace addiction. And so if we look at this definition that Gabor Mate gave about addiction, any behavior that a person craves or finds temporary relief in, but then experiences negative consequences, it doesn't give up. So the root of this statement is somebody's looking for relief. We're looking for relief. So it's really easy to look at the causes of suffering, Taṇhā, addiction, and all of this, and where it goes wrong, like what's bad about it, what's wrong about it. But it's helpful also to look at what's good about it. Where is it trying to relieve? Where is it trying to help me? What's right about my addiction? And like in my own life, I grew up feeling a lot of isolation. I felt like the weird kid. I remember when I discovered alcohol in my teenage years, I was like, wow, this helps me get along with my friends. This is really helpful for me. And then as I go through life, like certain things like my dad dying, that grief that I felt, hell, I had no clue how to be with that grief. I'm so grateful I had alcohol at that time because I don't think I would make it out alive. So I had alcohol to keep those demons at bay. It's like every night I would like put my head down to go to sleep and these demons would come out and torture me. Oh, thank God I had alcohol to keep those demons at bay, right? And so it's helpful to see what it's trying to do. And what it's trying to do is cope with this inevitable sorrow of dukkha, death. God, how can we be with death so directly in life? Life is so fucking tough. Give me a damn drink. That's the best resource I had at the time. Everybody is doing the best they can with the resources they have. Here's a new resource. I found the Dharma. Now I can do better. I'm so grateful that I found this method. And so when we look at these two qualities that I'm bringing up, dukkha and Taṇhā, they work together. And they work together in a compassion practice. When we embrace dukkha, we are able to let go of Taṇhā. When we embrace pain, we are able to let go of craving. Embrace anxiety, embrace grief. I can let go of addiction. And so this is the path in a very practical way that we can do these practices. That the Buddha wasn't teaching a philosophy, he was teaching a practice. This is what you do. We're not saying, oh, all life is suffering. Oh, the cause of suffering is this and that. It is see in your own life where dukkha holds true. Where in your heart right now does it hurt? Embrace that. And the more you embrace that, the more real you can be with life rather than masking in addiction. And so what I want to do is go into a practice of compassion. I think really the core of the Buddhist teachings is always going to point back at compassion. And compassion is a way to be in a loving presence with pain and heartache. Rather than our own natural tendencies to push out and hate pain. These bodies are set up for survival, not happiness. These bodies are set up to avoid pain, hide from pain. but that also leads to suffering. It's quite natural to suffer as a human. So the Buddha found this hack, compassion. Let's be loving, courageous, kind, and nurturing towards what is painful. And so as the years have gone by, we have, modern science to verify a lot of these practices. And I want to guide y'all through a practice on compassion with the outline that Kelly McGonigal came up with. And Kelly McGonigal wrote this book called The Science of Compassion. And in this book, she outlines 3 stages of compassion. And these 3 stages of compassion are influenced by a study done at the University of Wisconsin. And so what they did in this study, they took a group of meditators, and they are extremely advanced meditators, people that have meditated at least 10,000 hours throughout their life. So very well-practiced meditators. And what they did was they had them meditate, get into a meditative state, and as they were meditating, they exposed them to sounds of human suffering. Just terrible tragedy all happening all around them. Sounds of a woman screaming and a baby crying. Just awful sounds that just sound like terror happening around them. And while they were meditating, some may think, well, it didn't faze them. They were meditating. But quite the opposite happened. When they heard these sounds of human suffering, the first stage of compassion arose, and that was stress. Cortisol was released into their system. And they experienced this spike, cortisol, stressfulness. Okay. And that's kind of what the practice is. Embrace that. Embrace dukkha. It can be a stressful thing. Embracing your grief, sorrow, loss, and disappointment. That's allowed to be stressful. Sometimes we think stress is the enemy in this practice. Nah, let that stress be here. Let that cortisol fly. Let, as I say. Because what happens? The go. So after they went through and fully experienced the stress, there was a drop. And what happened next was oxytocin. And so oxytocin is that kind of like love chemical, right? When you hug somebody, you experience oxytocin. In breastfeeding, oxytocin is released. So oxytocin is all about bonding. And while it comes from a lot of human contact, they experienced it in meditation. And so as they felt the stress of the sounds, human suffering, they brought love towards it. And they experienced this internal love. And so that's kind of what the go is. Let go. And let this experience be a loving experience towards what is painful. And then after that, the 3rd stage happened. And so they had stress, they had love, and then they had hope. Dopamine was released. Dopamine. That I talk about scrolling on their phones releases dopamine. You know why? It's not because what you're seeing, it's the hope to see something better next time. As you're going through TikTok, it's like, what's the next thing I'm going to see? And so they released this dopamine in them because they had hopefulness. They had hope that there's an end of suffering. They had a hope that, that was stressful. Now I love it, but now I have hope that I can be with all of life's pain with care, with love. And so this is what I want to guide you all through in a brief meditation. We don't have to take too much time with it. These 3 stages. 1, embrace dukkha. 2, let go, love. And 3, experience the internal joy that comes from this. And joy may be too emotional, but the internal sense of security that comes from being with pain directly. And so I'm going to guide you all through this. I'm going to use 3 phrases. I should probably decide what phrases these are. Just like in loving kindness meditation, where we say phrases like silently to ourselves to incline the mind in that way. And this compassion meditation, I'm going to ask you all to silently say phrases to yourself to remember the intention, to stay with what is painful and bring it love and be free with it. So I'm going to ask you to bring to mind something painful in your experience. And this could be physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. And just welcome it in by saying, I feel you, I feel you, I feel you. And if you feel stress, feel that stress. Feel the body expressing itself. I feel you. Feeling this dukkha. Let, I feel you, let. And then bring in care. I care about you. I care about you. You may feel your arms on fire with anxiety, your gut drop with sorrow. Oh, I care about you. I care about you. I feel you and I care about you. I feel you and I care about you. And then we shift into the last level of compassion, which would be, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Oh, I'm here for you. You know? So just being with pain is such a loving, secure, hopeful practice. I feel you, I care about you, and I'm here for you. And so before we get into it, a little warning I gave last week that compassion meditation is a lot like lifting weights. That if you go to the gym the first day and you lift 500 pounds, you're going to tear every muscle in your body. So checking in with yourself, I'm going to ask you to bring to mind something that is calling to be felt, some pain, some difficulty in your life. If you need to pick up a 5-pounder today, pick up a 5-pounder today. If you feel like you can deadlift those 500 pounds, go for it. But be reasonable that we're not trying to solve any problem here. We're just trying to love whatever is calling to be loved. So, want to get into it? Yeah. So finding a way to sit that's supportive and comfortable. That there's so much information in this body, so the suggestion is, if you're physically able to, finding an upright posture that has this lines of communication open with the front of the body. And then just resting the body. Maybe just giving yourself a few deep in and out breaths. And bringing the awareness inward, softening any points of tension held. Softening the face. Allowing the shoulders to rest. Softening the belly. And surrendering your body to your seat. Just releasing this body. So let's welcome in this heart. And just begin to breathe in and out from your own heart. Welcoming in this courage of compassion, a willingness to be loving, nurturing, and gentle with any pain or heartbreak that is true in your own life. And just touching into your deepest intention to be free from suffering. So as you bear witness to your own heart, without interrogating or demanding answers, just asking yourself, where is there suffering in my life? What pain or difficulty is calling for my attention today? So whatever pain, suffering, difficulty shows up, just breathe in and out into this pain and silently say, I feel you. Breathing in and breathing out, I feel you. I feel you. I feel you. And it may be helpful to put in a literal sense of touch, putting your hands on your heart, caressing yourself, just feeling this body. I feel you. Where does this pain show up in your body? I feel you. I feel you. If any stress arises, that's okay. Feeling the stress. I feel you, and I care about you. As we open the heart up to the pain, meet it with a nurturing quality of care. I feel you, and I care about you. Feeling the pain directly and bringing care. Breathing in and breathing out. I feel you. I care about you. I feel you. I care about you. I feel you. I care about you. So what's the most caring and loving thing you can do for yourself right now? Imagining yourself younger, telling this younger version of yourself, I feel you and I care about you. Giving yourself a mental hug. What's the most loving way you can care for yourself right now? Creating a beautiful internal environment. I feel you and I care about you. How deep can you nurture this pain? that in our life, that everything in our internal system is worthy of love. So reassuring this pain that it is lovable. I feel you and I care about you. Bringing love towards what hurts. I feel you and I care about you. Breathing in and breathing out. I am here for you. I am here for you. I am here for you. I feel you. I care about you. And I am here for you. I feel you. I care about you, and I am here for you. I feel you, I care about you, and I am here for you. Not abandoning parts of ourselves because they may be scary. Letting your heartache know that you're here. Letting it know I'll love you no matter what. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you. Anytime you need me, I'm here for you. I feel you, I care about you, and I am here for you. I feel you, I care about you, I am here for you. I feel you, I care about you, I am here for you. Anything else you may need to hear, offering that up right now. I forgive you. I'm sorry. I appreciate you. I'll love you no matter what. I believe in you. You can do this. I love you, keep going. Whatever you need to hear, just offering that up right now. And we'll end the meditation the way we started, with a few deep in and out breaths. Softening the body. And we'll end with the sound of the bell.
What's up, y'all? Reverend Mikey Noechel here from Wild Heart Meditation Center in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for checking us out. Do me a favor, please like and subscribe. And if you feel moved to leave a donation, you can do so at wildheartmeditationcenter.org or the Venmo link in the description. Peace and love.